We begin tonight with this story. Over 50,000 direct jobs have been created for hundreds of farming communities across the country over the past 5 years. That's according to management of Guinness Ghana Brewery Limited. The Corporate Relations Director, Gabriel Opoku-Asare, says government's move to incentivize the private sector in the country continues to create endless opportunities for expansion. This was made known at the third stakeholders meeting on local raw materials held by the company. Charles Aite has more in this report.
Guinness Ghana Brewery Limited has been in talks with various stakeholders on the best ways by which it has over the past few years been engaging farmers across the country to provide jobs for them in the wake of governments coming up with the customs excise duty, which of course seeks to provide specific incentives for manufacturing companies who deal in local raw materials. This is based on a finding by the KNUST that has revealed that this very initiative by Guinness Ghana Brewery Limited is not just providing jobs for farmers across the country, but of course sustaining the agricultural supply chain. I'll be speaking to the Corporate Affairs Director of Guinness Ghana Brewery Limited as we explore the various moves by which Guinness is embarking on this very trend and how relevant it is to government's quest to boosting the private sector industry. A recent report by the Bureau for Integrated Rural Development, BIRD, indicates the beverage companies has been able to sustain the agricultural supply chain in the country through the creation of over 50,000 jobs and provision of expertise for small-scale farmers. Gabriel Opoku-Asare is the Corporate Relations Director of Guinness Ghana Brewery Limited. He tells Joy Business what this means for Ghana's agri sector.
Agric is a big enabler for every economy. I mean, if you look at our forex deficit as a country, if you focus on agriculture, I think it's a big enabler to recover from these challenges that every economy faces, especially Ghana. So here, it's been our big agenda since 2012. As we stated, we started from a place of 12% in terms of using local raw material in the production of our brands. Here, currently, we can talk about 48%, and we have a big ambition to move it up to 70% in the year 2020. We have a commitment in it, and as a global business, Guinness Ghana Brewery is part of Diageo, which is a global business. We want to source locally in the areas where we operate, right? So for us, it's driving innovation. If you are thinking of a new brand, we think about how much local raw material we can use in it, and that is a way to ensure that we continue using local raw materials.
Meanwhile, government through the Finance Ministry is seeking to expand the agri sector as part of plans to improve its contribution to the GDP. Deputy Finance Minister Kuku Kwanchen spoke to Joy Business.
The partnership between government and the private sector has been vindicated because, as you would have seen in the conversations, Guinness Ghana is able to do this supported by government concessions on excise taxes, so that once they use a certain amount of domestically produced raw material, then we provide some tax incentives. And what Guinness is telling us today, that thanks to those incentives, they have been able to expand their businesses, create opportunities where there's poverty, and improve the lives of people. So today, I feel vindicated. I think it's a vindication for the economic management strategy that says you should always seek to tax less in order that business activities would expand and create opportunities and jobs for those who need it.
The excise customs concession is a policy by government for brewers using local raw materials for the manufacture of perishable goods to increase production of premium brands and significantly increase the usage of local raw materials in the manufacture sector.
Customs World International, a subsidiary of Port Customs and Free Zones Corporation, has begun the process to fully take over the operations of the National Single Window and Risk Management System in Ghana. The company says it is committed to investing significant resources, including capital, world-class technologies, and human expertise in Ghana to improve efficiency at the port. Speaking to journalists after a brief meeting with the former staff of West Blue Consult, Chief Executive of Customs World, Asa Lutfi, noted that the company is ready to meet government's deadline to automate operations at the port.
Helps us with the strategy, with the very aggressive timelines we have been put in place with the government, and we see that whatever features we need to add, the developments will be sped up because we have an existing infrastructure, and all in all, this will help us meet the objective and the deadlines which we have been given by the government of Ghana.
Meanwhile, President of the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, Kwabena Fosu-Appiah, expressed confidence the new company will help in curbing the many challenges faced by exporters and importers.
Face value, if we look at Customs World and what they bring to the table in other places, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look bad, but to the extent that we have our own peculiar situations here, we want to probe a lot more deeper to satisfy ourselves. And, you know, we have grown a bit tired of this guinea pig situation, and we want to hope that these will be the final beats of it.
Does it mean this takeover is likely to be the panacea to all the problems that have been?
We hope so. If you look at the very impressive credentials of Customs World, I mean, like I say, on the face value, we want to believe that it will inure to our benefit. We want to believe and hope that it will not just be credentials on paper, but that it will really affect what we do on the ground. Yeah.
In all, what's the expectations from, I mean, freight forwarders angle? What are you expecting them to?
You see, when the Vice President of the land came out with his 3-point policy, that in the port and our clearance process, we are to expect within the next 6 months a timeline of 4 hours to be able to take our goods out of the port within 4 hours. Even though we are having serious difficulties on the grounds today, we hope that with the kinds of muscles that Customs World is bringing on board, these realization will come even sooner than the 6 months period.
Turning to the banking sector now, Omni Bank says it is certain about meeting the 400 million Ghana cedi minimum capital requirement set by the central bank. It is feared that some local banks may be forced out of business when the December 2018 deadline is due. However, Omni Bank says it is already making preparations towards meeting the set amount. Earlier this month announced a new minimum capital requirement of 400 million cedis for banks in the country. The over 200% increase from the previous 120 million cedis forms part of measures by the central bank to address some challenges within the banking space. Ghana's banking sector recently suffered a setback following the collapse of UT and Capital Bank. Speaking to Joy Business at an SME clinic in Accra, Head of Business and Personal Banking at Omni Bank, Ibo Kwesen, assured latest developments in the banking sector would not affect its SME-focused operations.
We pride ourselves in being an SME-focused bank, and about 90% of our loan portfolio is geared towards SMEs. This will not change. And to say that we'll go to 400 million, we work with the regulator. We have a healthy relationship with them, and at any point in time, we want to be on very good terms with them. For them, it is a way of strengthening the banking sector. We've had problems with DKM, Piram, and others in the past, so you can understand why the regulator feels that the sector should be strengthened. Before this announcement, some said 200, some said 500, etc. So we knew in advance that there was some announcement to be made. So we had started doing preparations towards that. So for us, we started the preparations. We are confident that we'll get the 400 before the December 28th deadline.
The Omni Bank SME Clinic is aimed at educating SMEs on financing options. Godwin Ansah is head of SME Clinic and Research at Omni Bank.
The reason why we have actually gone with this topic is premised on two things. One has been based on our own engagement, deep engagement with SMEs across the country. We became aware that most of the SMEs and businesses that we deal with are not aware of the latitude of financing options available for them, right? So that is one. And then secondly, we go with a demand-driven approach. Now, based on demand, we actually get a lot of requests from SMEs and businesses out there to actually touch on this topic. the discussion used to be on access to credit, but that has evolved. Now we are looking at what access to the right kind of credit. So the idea was to be able to bring on board, developmental partners, experts in the area, to present to them a wide range of options that they could actually, take advantage of. And the outcome of this is be able to enhance their business, allow them to compete more effectively in the marketplace.
The event also saw the launch of the Omni Bank Health, Churches and Schools HCS Pack to meet the financing needs of businesses in those sectors. HFC Bank has secured shareholders' approval to rebrand as Republic. The bank got the blessings from its investors at an extraordinary general meeting in Accra. They've also been given the nod to go ahead and raise fresh capital to help them meet the new capital level of 400 million cedis. Managing Director of HFC Bank, Anthony Jordan, has been explaining to Joy Business how critical this approval is to the bank's operations going forward.
We continue and intend to expand our depth and our reach in the mortgage market. That was the basis when we started, and we have done a number of initiatives to deepen our involvement in the mortgage market. We've been talking to the players, and I think in the coming months you will see us coming out with a new marketing drive with enhancement in our mortgage products to help homeowners achieve their goal in life.
When are we expecting the rebranding?
If all goes according to plan, it should be sometime towards the end of the first quarter of 2018.
So shareholders have approved the change of name. When are you starting to use the name? Is it immediate?
Now, President of the Ghana Association of Bankers, Al-Hassan Andani, has endorsed the proposed downgrading of banks that don't want to meet the new capital level. Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, has indicated that banks that don't want to recapitalize could look at taking up savings and loans licenses. While the governor's stance has not gone down well with some players in the industry who are worried that this would affect the extension of credit to businesses by these specialized banks. But Mr. Andani disagrees.
The banking sector is a regulated industry. The Bank of Ghana has now determined the condition upon which they will give a universal banking license, which is a 400 million Ghana cedi minimum capital. It's a message that we carry to our boards and our shareholders. And for the shareholders that still think that they can still have a good return on equity on 400 million will stay in the market. And I'm sure it's also time for shareholders with similar market appetite and business inclination to begin to engage. And we in management and leadership will, begin to simulate what the future will look like, in terms of partnerships and things like that. But again, for most of the banks that are now joining, they are coming up from the loans and savings arena, and they've already got expertise there, and they are profitable sectors as well. So yes, it's still an option, that those who are not prepared to step up to the universal license we should take, and the governor has been quite persistent about that.
Over the past few weeks, we've engaged several players in the banking sector who argue that this one-size-fits-all, approach by the regulator is not going to help in any way, and that the regulator will have to consider the strengths of these banks regarding the minimum capital requirements. But the regulator is still insisting that this is going to be the way forward. Do you still stand by this argument of the one-size-fits-all?
Look, when you say one size fits all, we have to be very careful. What is the minimum size? What the regulator is saying that the minimum size is 400 million. That's it. Then beyond 400 million, in 6 months' time, if you check the capital, let's say after banks have come to the minimum, you realize that certain banks accelerate very rapidly beyond the minimum. So the common size is 400. So nobody should determine a size lower than what the regulator says he wants to be the common size. You get what I'm saying? So to be a universal licensed bank, the minimum size is 400. And if you check some of the balance sheets of the banks, some people are already significantly more than the minimum. You don't stay on the minimum because there are opportunities out there as a bank that you want to take advantage of. So you go to your shareholders, and build either retain earnings into capital or get new capital to take advantage of those opportunities. So I struggle to understand what they call minimum, what they call a one-size-fits-all. I mean, what the regulator is saying is that the minimum for a universal bank, minimum size, is 400.
Aviation Now and the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority has justified its decision, cautioning the public against dealings with two new airlines. This was after representatives of the two airlines went ahead to advertise scheduled flights without the required approval by the authority. But one of the airlines, Gold Star, has rejected the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority's claims, describing it as an attempt to tarnish its image. But Director General of the Civil Aviation Authority tells Joy Business they stand by their action.
The processes for obtaining the air operator certificate includes a pre-application stage, a formal application, evaluation of documents, demonstration and inspection phase, and the final certification phase. But according to the regulator, the two airlines are yet to complete these processes. In an interaction with Joy Business, Director General for the GCAA, Simon Alute, cautioned the public against dealing with the two operators for now.
Any prospective operator who has not completed certification or is attempting to sell tickets or advertise various destinations needs to be carefully looked at. It may be a scam, and we will advise the general public to be very careful or be wary of such operators. And also, before an airline operates from Ghana to any other country, it has to be properly designated to fly to that country. By designation, it means the Republic of Ghana, through the Ministry of Aviation and Foreign Affairs, will write to their counterparts in the second country, indicating that they will want this particular airline to fly out to their country. And the second state will then examine the various documentation attached to the application, including the air operator certificates, manuals, insurance for the aircraft, and so on. They will undertake a safety assessment. Once they are happy, then they grant approval for the airline to operate. So one does not simply get up like a taxi driver and say, I'm operating Accra Osu today. You don't do that. You just can't fly to any country. You have to first apply for designation. And the airlines which are advertising various routes have not even gotten to the stage of AOC where they can then qualify to apply for designation.
The Civil Aviation Authority says it will soon publish the list of all airlines that have appropriate approvals to operate in the country.
In due course, we're going to publish the list of airlines in Ghana which have our air operator certificate, AOC, so that the public will be aware and be advised accordingly.
The Ghana Civil Aviation Authority is, however, in talks with the two airlines to rectify the issue.
Now, a strong economic growth for any country should always come with some excitement, right? But that appears it may not be the situation for managers of the economy after the announcement of a 9% economic growth rate recorded for this year. The following Business Desk report looks at some of the areas and how they affect you.
Of the biggest benefits of this historic economic growth could be the impact on the country's rising debt stock. Well, even though in monetary terms the debt stock may be rising and has reached 139 billion cedis as of June this year, after a 1.4 billion cedi jump, economists, development partners would want to look at the size of your economy and how the country has been able to build some assets to absorb these debts. Latest figures from the Bank of Ghana puts the debt in relation to the size of our economy at 68%, still below the dreaded 70% mark. But if you add the end-of-year value of 167 to the first half of this year, then it means that the value of the economy in monetary terms is worth 212 billion cedis. But this could put a lot of pressure on government to collect more taxes, as current numbers still show that we are not mobilizing more taxes in relation to the size of our economy. This development could put some pressure on managers of the economy, improve their tax collections or increase taxes to make for the shortfall. Or if they are not prepared to do this, government would have to cut expenditure to help close budget deficit issues.
Well, the latest GDP figures have revealed that every Ghanaian is worth 5,911 cedis in terms of per capita calculations. However, what would be the impact if we factor the public debt? Well, it looks like you would be taking home just 1,278 cedis. Sheila Tabaklo has been interacting with a section of the public on whether per capita income is a true measure of the standard of living in the country.
According to the recent report by the Ghana Statistical Service, Ghana's per capita income has increased from a recent figure of 4,950 cedis to 5,911 cedis. Now, on paper, this is quite good news because it means that the nation's general revenue has gone up. But I'm out here with the average, let's say Ghanaian, and the salary worker to find out if this is a true reflection on their daily activities and the standard of living. So I'm here with Prissy and Farid. Priscilla, do you think that you have seen an improvement in your standard of living by any chance? Because, I mean, just as you heard me say, the per capita income has gone up. Is this a true reflection?
For me, I wouldn't say I can really see a change in my revenue. So I can't tell if it has increased. No, I can't say it has increased because there's no change actually. No matter how the salary increases, like I say, the level of standard of living also increases. You end up spending the same. You think you have more, but actually all goes away sometimes.
So now let's look at it from this perspective. Now, when you get all that money that you get from your freelance and all, are you able to do more with it than previously?
Wow. Talking about the relationship here too, again, I come. As we earn, or as they say it increased, the same way our market goods and products and services in the market also increase. So it's like if I spend A, B, C on these goods, then you increase it definitely. We just heard that I didn't hear of the increment in the what do you call it, per capita income, maybe because of my busy schedule and all that. But I heard that it's on the increment on fuel. You understand? And later by the day, it will come to reflect the average Ghanaian. So this will go like it's a cycle. Like what I spend is what I will spend. You understand? My expenses will still be like push up to my revenue, and I don't know if I will see some changes.
Okay. Some of the opinion that there's not an equitable distribution of revenue in the country. Yeah. Would you say that is really the case?
I see the money is in the pockets of some people in Ghana. that's my personal term, though.
From the busy streets of Accra, we are by the seaside, and this is the Jamestown community. Now, most people here are fisher folk who are either fishing or fishmongers. Question is, how much income do you think that an average person from here will be earning? If you don't mind sharing with me, on average, how much money do you make, let's say, on a monthly basis, perhaps?
Actually, I don't earn any monthly money at all here because actually I drive in the morning that I pick the car and I close. I can buy about 1.5 fuel, and in case I have to make sales, 250 Ghana, and that is 200 cedis I'm talking about in the day that I have to fix to the car. So actually, if I can work like 250 cedis, then I'm loose. And each and every day is what is going on here. So I'm telling you, the community here is very, very poor. It's very, very poor.
Like shikeba mami lo.
Oh, ke boni tashi eyami. Eyami, ajake won bomode won nashka fiu. Ya ko nashka no di nuchumo. Efe yawo.
Wo biano baka ke shi me hio ni wa fe chuchuku elo.
O memba yo ni. Mene ja che memba.
So what I asked is that I wanted to find out from her how the general business atmosphere for her has been like in the course of the year. And what she tells me is that, well, for her side of things, she thinks that business is better. Even today, she has made quite some good sales. So from her perspective, she thinks that business activities have improved. For you sitting at home, you've had this opinion, we've heard that of the average salary worker. For you at home, I don't know what you do, but judging from these comments that we've heard, and judging from your own situation, is the new per capita income, which is 5,911 Ghana cedi, a true reflection of what is going on in your pockets? Reporting for Joy News from Jamestown Community, my name is Sheila Tamaklo.
Making your own calculations over there. Let's move now to our interview of the day. And the call for transformational leadership among Africans is a major concern for many entrepreneurs and business leaders. This is because many people believe the development of Africa lies in the leadership skills of managers of the economy and the private sector. To this end, the Center for Transformational Leadership Africa is hosting this year's Live to Lead Summit in Accra, a thought leadership and personal growth event developed by the John Maxwell Company. This year's summit is scheduled for October 6th at the College of Physicians and Surgeons. Samuel Ayim is the Chief Executive of CTL Africa.
Interview of the day.
In every discussion in our country and in Africa, we pinpoint leadership as one of the main factors for either development or non-development. But we've not sat down to ask ourselves, what type of leadership are we talking about? And so I have taken upon myself the idea, the mission of trying to bring new leadership thoughts and ideas to help us to rethink our concept of leadership so that we can reform the way we lead in all aspects of our social, political, and economic life. So that is the essence of bringing this. And this is going to be just one of the events that Center for Transformational Leadership, which is a new baby that I'm trying to put together, would help. So we started with the youth. We have a program we call Youth Max, basically touching secondary schools and young people and bringing into this idea. I believe strongly that one of the things we have to do is to bring leadership thoughts, leadership ideas from the very basic levels through to our investors. You and I went to university. Nobody taught us leadership. But today you are leading teams, you are leading, so you now have to learn things. Sometimes you make a lot of mistakes because you didn't have the tools. And that is the essence of this program, to give people the tools, the basic concepts and principles that they can use straight away.
Interview of the day.
And that's our program tonight. Thanks for watching. My name is Darryl Carl. We'll see you same time tomorrow.